and my friend, my neighbor became my very dear friends, both of them. And I used flowers to send a message. So one day she had knocked on my door and I answered it. And I said to her that I was really not able to talk at the moment. And she said, okay, cool. And I sent her flowers with a note. And the note said, "Mum's the word."
I hope they were Mum's flowers. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Joe, Dr. Energy Piazza.
Rara is in the house. Catherine Asaro Myers.
Welcome back to BU Network Podcast, Conversations Worth Having. On our podcast, you can expect three things. 1, the BU guest moment. 2, the BU moment. And 3, the BU final moment.
As promised, we are giving you a very special audible on each show. Your job, well, not your job, it's to find it. You know the game Where's Waldo? Well, here we will ask you to listen for that audible. Dr. Energy, this is another really special time for me and for you as well. When we have a chance to speak about our BU moment, it makes me feel, and there's that feeling, makes me feel like we get to share with our audience the true us about this moment and the moment we're in, and gives people a chance to think about the moment that they're in. So this is our BU moment. Would you like to paint the picture of where you are, what you're thinking, what's going on in your head tonight?
Well, that might be a scary place to be in my head, but I love doing the BU moments because we get to share a little bit of the magic of what we're doing with you in a little bit more transparent and open way. So tonight I'm standing here in my office. I've got a little bit of incense burning. I love the smell of it. I was doing some meditation earlier, and that just helps me get in that frame of mind for being able to be present with you, with our guest, with our audience, and I can be fully present in the moment. It just settles the mind, and I can put all my focused attention on the moment. And so I'm dressed a little bit more yoga style today in a nice pair of white yoga pants and a white t-shirt. And I'm just really standing here being in the moment. There's not much else to say, really. I'm in my usual studio office, and I'm just really enjoying being here right now.
That is magical.
And how about yourself? What are you doing? I'm not going to ask you what you're wearing, but you can feel free to share that if you like.
Okay. So the question is, what am I doing?
Sure. Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you being right now?
Okay. I am holding a deck of flower therapy oracle cards. I was just going to rename those cards entirely. So what I like about this deck of cards is it's flower therapy, and it seems light and carefree. Right. And what I'm going, and this is the first time I'm actually opening this. It was a gift. Wow. Yes. And I thought, let me open it.
That's kind of magical.
It is. And that's what made me think about doing this. And I just pulled the card, and I'd like to read it to you. It's the card of trust. And it's a pink carnation. And here's what the card says. You can trust the people around you. They are earth angels sent to give you the guidance you seek. That's an awesome card. So I am standing here in my bridge room, which is a magical room, as you know. And I decided to open this flower therapy deck of cards that I have never used or opened before, so I won't fiddle with it right now. And I'm wearing my favorite color, black. And when it comes to clothing, I don't know how many black tops and dresses I have. It's ridiculous. It's like just another one. What's the difference between that and the other one? Well, this one has 3/4 sleeves instead of long sleeves. So I'm wearing my favorite black top because it just feels a little bit on the elegant side. And I wanted to feel really good with that tonight. I wanted to not wear a black t-shirt, but something a little bit different.
Right.
And I have on magical shoes that have big rhinestones in them.
Are they red ruby slippers to go with your Michael Jackson gloves?
I have those kinds of shoes, but tonight I decided to wear, they actually say love on it.
Oh, nice.
And they're from Brighton, which is a store in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I travel to Salt Lake City, I usually stop in a Brighton store. And they have this amazing, they're really beautiful design and this amazing big rhinestone on them. Anyway, it's a magical shoe for me, and because it says love and it has all these wonderful colors and it's from Brighton, one of my favorite stores. That's my magical shoes. And in my bridge room, I always have a view, and the view is of our gardens, and that's really interesting to me. And I'm surrounded by my greenery, my plants. I'm surrounded by artwork that really means a lot to me. I really appreciate impressionist art, and there's a beautiful oil painting that when you stand close to it, it looks like one thing, and when you step back 5 or 6 or whatever 10 feet, it looks a little, the detail gets more clear as you step back. So I really enjoy these 2 pieces of art from a friend of mine, Christine, who painted them, and I've always loved them. So that's what I look at. Plus I have different things that I'm surrounded with. So who I am tonight is I am surrounded by things that are magical.
Nice.
And it really creates the vibration for what we're doing and the experience that we're having with our awesome guest and each other.
Cool. So I've got a fun little factoid for you. I feel like I'm Cliff Clavin from Cheers with all these little facts. I don't know how ancient it is, but several hundred years old, art of sending messages with flowers and different flowers. So you mentioned about your flower therapy oracle deck. Different flowers actually meant certain things. So people would make arrangements of flowers with different flowers that would send a specific message, whether it's to a loved one or to, if they didn't want somebody else to pick up on a message, they would send it through flowers. It's really quite interesting. So the idea of the beauty of the flowers and the magic of connecting to the energy of that oracle deck that you shared is really neat synchronicity tonight.
Well, thank you for that. And I'd like to say one more thing that you just reminded me of. Speaking of flowers and messages, now when my friend listens to this episode, I know she will be laughing so hard. So once upon a time, I lived in New York, and I lived in this adorable neighborhood, and my neighbor became my very dear friends, both of them. And I used flowers to send a message. So one day she had knocked on my door, and I answered it, and I said to her that I was really not able to talk at the moment, and she said, okay, cool. And I sent her flowers with a note, and the note said, "Mum's the word."
I hope they were Mum's flowers as well.
They were. And we're talking about this. I'm talking about 5, 6, 7 years ago.
That's funny.
It is funny. So I definitely subscribe to using flowers or implementing flowers to send a message. And it was probably the funniest thing I ever did with flowers. Thank you for bringing that up.
No problem. I think that is a great place to jump on over to our guest, Rodrigo, and talk about sleight of mind and magic.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to say this is a very exciting show for us today. And Dr. Energy, I am thrilled to be here with you for so many reasons. For the first reason being that this show is going to be magical. I can feel it.
Yes.
Do you feel that?
I do. There's something mysterious in the air.
I think we have something really special to share with our guests this evening. And it's not just a thing. It's a whole being. It's a concept. Our guest tonight is onto something that is huge. Besides that, these written words mean so much to us. I'd like to ask you if it's okay if I can take a few minutes and introduce our guest at this moment.
Absolutely. Go for it. I'm excited about this.
Okay, great. So I'd like to introduce our award-winning author, Rodrigo Diaz. Rodrigo is the author of Sleight of Mind, How to Create and Experience Magic in Your Life.
Cool.
Rodrigo was born and raised in Mexico City, now living in Canada. He has always been fascinated by the psychology behind magic. Rodrigo is now studying how to apply the concept of how to make the impossible possible. Rodrigo is studying how to apply concepts from neuroscience, spirituality, and quantum physics in our daily lives and live life from the highest version of ourselves. Rodrigo is an author, empowering our journey to self-development. Rodrigo is now in pursuit of helping others realize they already have everything they need to start living their dream life.
Wow. That's awesome. I can't wait. Neuroscience, quantum physics, spirituality, wisdom, knowledge, magic. It's awesome.
It is. And wait till you hear what's going to happen tonight. Rodrigo, I want to welcome you to BU Network Podcast and say thank you so much for your time and joining us this evening.
Hello, guys. How are you tonight?
We're great.
Doing awesome.
How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I am so excited.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Rodrigo, there are so many things that I want to ask you, but I will ask you a few. There are so many things that you can share with us. But one of them is, I just want to know if you could explain a little bit to us about how did you become fascinated with magic? At what age was that?
Absolutely. This is such a good question. Well, typically, a boy or a girl falls in love with magic at the early age, like around 7 or 8 years old. They kind of see the funny uncle, kind of shows them a magic trick with a coin.
Pulls the coin out of their ear.
Correct. You know which one. And that's where the curiosity starts. But for me, funny enough, I've always liked puzzles. I've always liked not knowing magical things, how they happen. But it was not until I was 21, so kind of going out of college, where I just fell in love with not necessarily magic, but the feeling that made people feel. That moment, there's such a beautiful moment in magic that I call it the aha moment. That when you see a magic trick, the first 3 to 5 seconds, your brain doesn't know what to do. Like, it generally had a break from reality. It cannot compute what happened. And that normally lasts 3 to 5 seconds.
Right.
But then after that 3 or 5 seconds, your analytical brain kicks in. Now you want to know how it's working out. How did he do the trick? Where is the trick? But I fell in love with those 3 to 5 seconds. So for me, it was, how can we live a life where those 3 to 5 seconds are just 24/7? I just like that idea.
Wow. That's awesome.
Rodrigo, that's a fantastic concept. And if I'm not mistaken, you are living it.
Oh, I just learned how to live it, and and it's just the beginning. It's so interesting.
Yeah. I know that. Well, so if I can talk about magic with you for a little bit, if that's all right with you. Okay. So people hear magic and maybe they're not understanding what kind of magic you're speaking about. So may I ask you to give us a brief synopsis of your magical journey from a boy to now? Is it the same magic? Is it the same trick? Is it a trick of the mind? Is it a sleight of hand? Is it a sleight of mind?
Really, really good questions. I love them all. So the type of magic that I fell in love with, it's called close-up magic. So close-up magic is all the type of magic that happens exactly how it says, close to you. A deck of cards, coins, perhaps rings, something that looks normal can now be a possibility to be something extraordinary. And so when I learned magic, really just close-up magic, it was only just to fool my friends. I just wanted to have fun, a couple of card tricks, and that was it. And it developed into now using I learned a little bit of psychology behind it, which is fascinating to me. And I discovered that's where the love for this new part of magic started to come along. So now the type of magic that I do, so I still practice a little bit of like sleight of hand. So it's called sleight of hand, the ability to use my hands to manipulate small objects to give you the experience of magic. So that's what sleight of hand is. And so I still do that, but now I love doing it with everyday life, ordinary objects. Like you can give me a ring and I can do something for you. You can give me your own deck of cards and I can show you something. Even your cell phone nowadays, I can show you something with just what you have on you. So I think that's really cool. It makes it more organic.
Yes. Can you get dinner on the table?
I'm practicing that one.
So put it on and take it off. That would be good.
So there's something in there I was hearing, and as I was reading through the book a little bit, you mentioned about how you went from, you started off with wanting to kind of fool or entertain and fool your friends to developing a love for the psychology where that 3 to 5 seconds and that magical moment, that secret move, if you will, happens. So I'd like to hear if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. And I will explain a little bit that for me, I found it fascinating that it's easier to trick an adult than to trick a kid. And let's start with that. Because when I show a kid a trick, the kid doesn't ask the same questions as an adult in their head. Right. They just experience it and enjoy it. And if a thought comes into a kid's head, it's like, oh, well, you did this. It's probably, this is what happened. And 99.9% of the times, they are correct. Right. Funny enough, an adult, it's easier to trick them because, I'm currently in my mid-30s. So now I've lived 30-something years believing that life is a certain way. So do you. So someone else. Like you have so many patterns that when I just change something out of a normal pattern that now it's engraved in your brain, you get that shock. You get that aha moment. Right. You're like, what just happened? You really genuinely don't know what happened. Because again, a kid has this whole world of infinite possibilities where as an adult, if we don't keep practicing infinite possibilities, we start to close that door.
Right, like the creativity, we close it off.
Childlike wonder, right? We go into childlike wonder. And to talk a little bit about that aha moment, and this is where the psychology and the miracles part of things starts to kind of merge into the magic part. I discovered that there's 3 places where magic happens and a magic trick. Right. And now I would love for you to now, when I say magic, think also about the word miracles. Okay. Now we're kind of merging the worlds. Okay. So number 1, magic happens in the present moment. Right. Right. So it's similar to a joke. If I was to tell you the end of the joke, you wouldn't laugh. It's not funny. So magic, if I'm showing something to you and perhaps your cell phone went off and you look at the text and you missed where the magical moment happened, I cannot repeat it. You missed it. So magic happens in the present now. So if we're looking out for miracles in our lives and we're talking in our heads about like, oh, I got to go to work. I got to do this. I got to pick up the kids. You're not now. So your miracle can be in front of you and you miss it. So magic happens in the present. The other one is magic happens in the unknown. So the unknown, how many times do we go in our lives trying to, okay, today's Sunday, I got to do this at 3 p.m. I got to do this at 6 p.m. We have schedules.
Right.
And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 95% of the people have full schedules, and they're not leaving any room for the unknown.
Right.
And if we want a miracle to happen, we need to leave that gap. I imagine
space for it to happen, right?
Exactly. Like, how can someone, like, the miracle wants to come into your life, but the miracle sees you. I'm like, oh, there's no space. He has full schedule. Okay, I'm just not going to go in. And the last one, which I think is incredible, magic happens in your head. So I do a magic trick, and I know where the magic is, the trick part. I'm doing it with my hands. I know how it works. I know when to do the move, perhaps. So if I know where the trick is, then where does magic happens? In your head. So you are the one taking the information I just put in front of you, and the experience happens in your head. So going back to miracles, if you want to create a miracle in your life, where does the change need to happen? In your head, inside of you.
Perfect. Love that. That's the only place it can happen.
Exactly.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Catherine?
Yes, I wanted to.
I know you had I could just feel that you have a burning question that you want to ask. So
You know me.
Yeah.
Rodrigo, I'd like to know if you could give us a specific about your relationship to quantum physics.
Yes, absolutely. Because normally that's a huge topic, right?
Yeah, that's several podcast episodes.
So I know I'm asking you to condense that, but if you don't mind, I mean, we will open up another show for you, for sure. But if you could give us that, and our audience as well.
Right. Absolutely. And I love to preface always that I talk in my book about neuroscience, quantum physics, and spirituality, but I love saying that I'm not an expert, right? I don't have a PhD on any of this. These are just simple concepts that I could, when I was studying all of this, they came to me in a very simple way. So all I'm doing is translating them in a simple way so someone else can grab them and practice this and do miracles in their life. That's I love saying that because that's just the reality and it's just simple. So let's get into the quantum physics. So quantum physics, for me, how I understand it, is the study of the smallest particle of energy. Right? So if we go inside an atom or an electron, if we keep digging in with a huge microscope, a very powerful microscope, we just go for that little energy ball. Let's just call it an energy ball. So if quantum physics studies this little energy ball, and there's such a thing that it's called a quantum leap. So a quantum leap is when a little energy ball jumps from point A to point B, but there is no movement at all. So it generally disappears from point A and appears in point B at the same time. And a scientist cannot track the movement.
Right.
So how does this apply to us? I started to imagine, and we know these conversations now more and more, they're out there. The information is out there that if a small particle of energy can do a quantum leap, and what are we made of? Humans are made of energy, right? So can we make a human quantum leap? And what does that look like? So in my imagination, a quantum human leap looks like, obviously we're not going to I would love to teletransport myself to Mexico, but I'm not there yet. But
we're not in Star Trek territory yet, right?
I know. We're getting there. But a human quantum leap, for me at least, it is experiencing that leap, that difference on experiences. So if I'm going through depression, I can quantum leap to happiness. If I'm going through sickness, perhaps there's a possibility I can quantum leap to health. If I'm going through being in a financial situation that is not what I want it to be, perhaps I can quantum leap to financial abundance.
Beautiful.
So that's what a little bit of how quantum physics can be applied in this conversation.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Rodrigo. I know that there's so much more to be said on that. And
yes,
to honor everything that you do believe in and the work that you have done. I thank you so much for condensing that for us, because it's an important part of who you are and the conversations that we had. I know that it's important, for you to reference that. So thank you. Dr. Energy, may I ask another question? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay, great. So I have something specific that I want to ask you, Rodrigo, and I don't know if giving you the page number will help, but I'm sure that you know this backwards and forwards. So,
yes.
Okay, so in your book on page 86, you talk about never stop playing, childlike wonder. So there's so many things that I wanted to reference and pull out of this conversation, but I really feel that there's something here, just even the way that you answered, I can feel your smile. Can you tell us how you developed this aspect of this chapter?
Absolutely. I started to analyze kids again, because of magic, I think kids have this different connection to it. But then when I'm seeing, I have 3 nieces, they're beautiful, and I see them play, I'm looking at them and I remember what it was like to be a kid. And then all the studies that I'm doing about how have I become this today on my mid-30s? Why do I think some things are possible? Why do I believe some things are impossible? And it all goes back to childlike wonder and to never stop playing. I think at a certain point, we were told, stop playing. We were told, you got to get a job at some point. Stop playing. You got to grow up. All those little things, right? And to be honest, our parents did not mean any harm. That with all the love, they thought those words were going to help us to get where we successfully have a life, correct? So they're not doing it out of despite. But then I started to think, maybe there's kids, if you can look at a kid playing, imagining, there's a connection to what I call source, the universe. In that moment, the kid believes that what was happening inside is happening in the reality.
Right.
And they're connected. All they're doing is one thing, enjoying the present moment. And they don't want it to stop. Like when you tell them, okay, kids, come back for dinner or sit down, they feel sad because they don't want to stop. They want to keep playing. They could go hours without eating. So this chapter of never stop playing is to remind us as an adult, because sometimes it happened to me, and this is why I wrote the book. It happened to me. I forgot what I liked. I forgot that there's still a Rodrigo inside of me that just wants to play. And how could I tell, moving on, what I like and what I don't like? Just by playing. When you're a kid, you saw a kid in the park, I'm going to go play with that kid. And maybe I like it, maybe I don't. But you're just playing and you're discovering what you like about life and what you don't. Go to that yoga class, that you just play with that idea. Go out for a coffee with a friend. Play with the idea of maybe applying for a new job. It's just playing. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. Hopefully you get it, but just ask that person out. You're playing with ideas with a possibility that it could be so much fun. That's just what we came here to do. To be happy, to feel love, peace, and joy. And playing is the answer.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Nice. So that sense of play, and I'm going to see if we can sort of tie some stuff together, because I'm a sometime student of quantum physics myself as well, and neuroscience, as well as a chiropractor. So that whole sense of playing and being in the present moment, like a child, with that childlike sense of wonder. And I know that you mentioned in your book about Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I've studied Dr. Joe's stuff as well. And this is a lot of what he talks about, is having that sense of imagination and playfulness in the present moment in order to start rewiring our nervous system, rewiring our brains to fire in a new way, because who we are right now has been has been a habit of all of our actions and behaviors and thoughts and emotions up until this point in our life. And if we want to change who that is, we have to start reprogramming ourselves. So how does that, or where does that all sort of fit in this sleight of mind?
Yes, and that conversation is the one that excites me so much that I'm so happy you asked the question. So thank you, Joe. So I'm going to share something with the audience that is personal, and thank you for accepting it. 1 year ago, the person that is talking to you right now did not exist. The person 1 year ago was sick, sad, felt trapped, felt depressed, felt like there was no way out. And understanding the following changed my life. Understanding that I am a habit changed my life. So when I tell people, well, listen, you are a habit. You think brushing your teeth, walking, texting is a habit. Well, you are a habit. They ask the question, what do you mean? Well, let's take a look at the definition of a habit. A habit is an unconscious set of automatic behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. You don't even need to think of this. They're just there. They're patterns. You memorize them, and your body doesn't need your brain to do this anymore, right?
Right.
So let me paint you a really good picture. So I mentioned I'm in my mid-30s. So imagine waking up 35 years of my life every morning thinking, my name is Rodrigo. Right. I am from Mexico. I speak Spanish and English. I live in Toronto. I go to work here. Well, imagine that thought, 35 years. It's a huge snowball effect.
Right.
At some point, I'm going to be so deep into that thought that I'm going to believe that that's who I am. I'm sick. I don't like this. I don't like that. Right? So understanding that I am a habit changed my life, because after understanding that, well, if I repeated this thought for these many years, perhaps I can repeat different thoughts and start to believe different thoughts. So this is the reprogramming your brain part of the conversation.
Right.
It will take practice, because
that's for sure.
Because right now, when I started to do this transformation,
right,
I call it my puppy mind, my imagination. When I close my eyes and try to imagine the Rodrigo I want to be, my mind was all over the place, right? And this happens to most people that are trying to learn how to meditate. They close their eyes and there's a voice in there and blah, blah, blah. This voice goes here, goes there. I got to do this. I got to pay that bill. My boss said this. And that's okay. That's okay, because what you want to do is train that puppy mind to become a lioness. A lioness is just waiting for that prey for the right moment at the right time. So to just finalize this thought, so what did I do when I closed my eyes? I closed my eyes and I started to imagine, how would it feel? And the key word there, please, is feel. How would it feel to be healthy? How would it feel to be happy? How would it feel to really embody love? And over again for 11 months, that's what I've been doing, is sitting there for 30 minutes at least and imagining, how would it feel to just be love, abundance, happiness, unlimited. So that's a little bit of that neuroscience conversation, right?
That's awesome. And this is, what you were mentioning about how overcoming the habit that we are. This is, what neuroscience research is talking about as our default mode network, right? We have this default way of reacting, and we're trying to create something new. And until we can start to interrupt that pattern and interrupt it continually, often enough, with enough feeling, we don't create something new. You mentioned something really good there about asking the question of how would it feel to be love, abundance, etc. This is one of my favorite techniques that I share with my patients and my practice members, is ask yourself a different question than you've been asking. Because if you keep asking yourself the same questions all the time, you're going to keep getting the same answers. So by asking that different question, how would it feel to be healthy? How would it feel to be love or abundance or prosperity? All of a sudden it shifts our mind, because the mind wants to go and answer that question.
How would it feel to experience miracles every day in my life? Oh, and I can tell you, Joe, it's been quite an amazing journey.
That's inspirational. See, this is what people who are listening, those who have already experienced things in their life that they feel are magical, but to listen to what you just said, Rodrigo, about every single day.
Yes.
Not just once. Not once I remember when. That was a magical moment. Every day, over and over again. That becomes part of your being.
Yes. And I have a mentor, and he tells me one phrase that I just love. And he says, those who believe in miracles experience more of them.
Right.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, sign me up for that.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Attracting miracles. Well, Rodrigo, let me ask you a question for our audience. Can you please talk to our audience about where to find your book?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My book is called Sleight of Mind, How to Create and Experience Magic in Your Life. And anyone can find it. If you're in Canada, just go to amazon.ca and type Sleight of Mind. And it's a blue cover. It has a little brain with a magician's hat. And there's doves coming out of the brain hat.
Yes, I'm
and
looking
doves,
at it right now.
Yes, the doves symbolize ideas, thoughts. And if you're in the States, perhaps you can also go to amazon.com and do the same. Sleight of Mind, and the little cover will appear, and there you go.
I think we can put a link to that, I think, in our show notes for you as well, and hopefully people will find that and enjoy reading how they can experience those magical moments in their life, the miracles every day.
Absolutely. Thank you. I would love to spread my message of love, empowerment, and creation, because I think, if I can say something here, I genuinely believe you, me, everyone else in this planet came into this world to experience love, happiness, peace, and joy. Like we are still kids. That thing, it's incredible. There's something inside of you that has no shape or form. There's something inside of you looking outside.
Yes.
And that part of you is not your name. That part of you is not your nationality, your age, your gender. No, that part of you is the universe.
Right.
That part of you is a creator. So you came to this planet to experience all these different love, joy, happiness, abundance, emotions by being the creator of your experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rodrigo. There is no time to end a conversation about magic. Absolutely not. But there is something that is important to us on our show that we believe gives a good message to our audience, and also it's a great exchange between the three of us. We like to call this our BU final moment. And to explain what that is to our listeners who are listening to this, if it's your first episode, every episode we talk about that. We could use a term called a takeaway, but our final moment is, what have you gotten? What moment of this episode tonight would you like to speak about that was near and dear to your heart, or hit home, or made you
resonated?
Think? Yes, something that hit a buzzword or resonated, like you said, or lifted you up. So that BU final moment is yours, and yours to share. So I'd like to ask you, Rodrigo, and then Dr. Joe, I'll ask you, and then mine after. Could you please share with you and with our audience your BU final moment?
For sure. You want me to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Guests first.
So, Thank you. I'm going to try to summarize it. But we've been talking about magic and miracles and perhaps meditation, or how would it feel? So what we're talking about is imagination, right? Closing my eyes and envisioning all of this. There's a simple thought that I love, that there's two worlds. There's an invisible world and there's a visible world, right? Mm-hmm. Everything in this visible world came from the invisible world. Everything, our computers, our cars, like even the idea of you started in an invisible world. And now you're visible. So this conversation with you guys is, I just got reminded, and thank you for that let's go back to that invisible world. Close your eyes. Imagine the best possible scenario, because guess what? That's what's going to happen if you keep doing over and over again. Go into that invisible world, also known as silence, as meditation, as closing my eyes. Mm. And imagine, so you can start pulling everything into this visible world creation. So thank you that you guys just conversing with you has reminded me of this beautiful principle of invisible into visible.
Thank you. That's a beautiful final moment.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Joe, I'm glad you're going next and I don't have to follow.
So for me, the final moment, something that really struck me was, and you'd almost think that we scripted this, and I promise you we didn't, was when, Rodrigo, when I asked you about the quantum physics and the connection between that and spirituality, I could feel over the internet, if you will, the energy. It was like I could almost see in my own mind, I could see you smiling. I could feel the shift in your energy as you started to speak that, and as I asked I could feel your energy shift as you started to speak your answer to that question that I asked. And I love seeing, feeling, hearing people light up when they get passionate about something and get to share that with their audience. So that's my takeaway tonight. My final moment is just that resonance with the what is.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Rah-rah.
Yes, I'm in the house. I agree with you with what you said, everything you said. There was another moment. My takeaway, my final moment for tonight is the real, authentic Rodrigo. Rodrigo, you brought me to a moment when you said a year ago, and you started to talk about who that person was in relation to who the person is today. And your transparency, your authenticity, you're bringing us to the raw facts, the truth, really made me realize that who we are at this moment is the moment that counts. And I appreciate you reminding me of that, and you exposing, and maybe I say that, and hopefully with all due respect, in the sense of
course,
to the audience of the truth of that was someone else and who you are now. And it makes me want to know more. It brings my mind to knowing more about who you are at this moment, because this is the birth of a new man.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Because just to finalize that thought, is because who I was before, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happened. What matters right now is just you, me, you guys right now, even our listeners right now. What do we want to do out of this? How do I want to feel right now? That's what matters. That's who I am. I am now.
Thank you. That is an awesome moment for us. There's nothing more that I can say to this except thank you. We are so grateful. We thank you so much for appearing on our podcast, for giving us your voice, and for sharing your mind and sharing your experience with us and our audience. And I certainly look forward to what's next for all of us together.
Yes, I can't wait to see what happens next. That magic moment.
Miracles are happening all the time.
They are.
Excellent.
Thank you for joining us. Sharing is caring. Tell your friends about conversations worth having on BU Network. We really appreciate your reviews, and you can do that on Apple Podcast. Thank you.
For show notes and links, go to www.b-u.network/podcasts. Connect with us via our website, www.b-u.network, and build a relationship with us. Sign up to receive information, updates, and your free video training at www.b-u.network/pro.
We're looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for being with us. Ciao.
Ciao, babies.